A lot, yeah.
So my name is Darrin Hill. I'm Communication and Education Specialist with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, and we're here for another episode of Warden Stories. Like that name?
I like it, yeah.
Game wardens have a lot of stories, don't they?
Yeah, we do. We certainly do.
And I'm here with my good friend Kenny Lawson, who you've been a game warden for a long time now.
October will be 37 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I work with some guys that are not even that old yet.
Oh yeah, there's guys in my district that, I've been working a long time before they were even born. So
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah.
And with that longevity on a job, it shows you how much people love their work within the wildlife department or just working in the outdoors.
That's true. Yeah.
You have a passion.
You have to have that fire, and I still have it, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So I wake up every day thinking about what am I going to do today, and what's the best thing to do today. It may be different than what the best thing was to do yesterday or do tomorrow. So it's been an interesting career.
So it's sort of a long leash, but also you've got a lot of self-delegation of what you need to do.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to be self-motivated for sure. And you do have that freedom, but with that freedom, there is the responsibility of being self-motivated. Mm-hmm. And so I've always said, if you're lazy by nature, this job will make you lazier, but we don't have room for that. So, it's just, I've always been motivated, and that hasn't changed in all that time.
Well, we appreciate everything you've done and are going to continue to do
I appreciate
in the future of your job. So what got you into becoming a game warden? Had you always been in the outdoors?
Yeah, I grew up hunting and fishing. I grew up on the outskirts of Tulsa, out in the country. Okay. And I've hunted and fished as long as I can remember. Mm-hmm. And I spent a lot of time on, my aunt and uncle had a farm. Mm-hmm. My grandparents had a farm. And we lived out in the country, so we might as well had a farm there, just a small place. But there was woods and water everywhere. And so I've hunted my whole life. And then as I got older, I became friends with Game Warden Tom Cartwright.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't a game warden then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had a brief motorcycle racing career.
Okay.
His brother was my racing partner. And
wow.
Tom and I hit it off really well, and he had taken the game ranger back then.
Yeah, yeah.
Game ranger test a couple of times, and he called me up one day and said, "Hey, come and take the test with me tomorrow." I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. And he got hired, and so I spent the next year as much time as I could with him in his county, and that just made that desire to continue trying to get hired even more. So lucky enough, I was hired in 1988, and they put me in southeast Oklahoma in McCurtain County, and I've been there ever since.
Wow. Had you been to southeast Oklahoma before? I had
been there.
Yeah, yeah.
Hadn't spent any time there.
Yeah.
But I had been through there a time or two, and but never spent any time there at all. Not much.
You fell in love with the area quick, or did it? And then,
it took a little bit. I'll be honest. I was in for a culture shock, and I had heard a lot of stories about McCurtain County my whole life. And
so describe, McCurtain County as an ecosystem. What I mean by ecosystem is what's the environment look like? I mean.
So McCurtain County lays in the very southeast corner of the state. We're bordered by Arkansas to the east, Texas to the south across the Red River. And so the northern half of the county is big. The locals call them mountains, but they're really hills. But it's pine hardwood timber. The Weyerhaeuser Timber Company owns most of the land in the county. They're the biggest landowner there by a long shot. And in their property, there's about 5,000 miles of logging roads. That's a lot of
roads.
Yeah. And so Then the southern half of the county would be real similar to the Piney Woods of East Texas. It's a little flatter, and then once you get down south of Idabel, then you have coastal floodplain farm ground.
Oh, wow.
It's a really fertile ground. They grow corn and soybeans and what have you. So it's really diverse. And then some places we have a lot of wetlands.
Okay.
And there's a lot of cypress swamps in the area. So
I've been to Red
pretty cool
Slough,
place.
and if somebody hasn't been to Red Slough, take that opportunity, right? It's
absolutely. Yeah, it's a unique place. It's unique to Oklahoma. We're also probably the farthest northwest natural habitat or natural range of alligators.
wow.
And probably the furthest northwest of range of where black bears and alligators share the same habitat. So
That's amazing.
pretty cool. Yeah.
And so McCurtain County, just for most people, we're talking about southeast Oklahoma, far southeast.
Far southeast.
So this is the furthest southeast county you can get.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yep, that's right. Yeah, it's a big county. It's roughly the same size as the entire state of Delaware.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot. And there's not that many of you wardens out there working, so you're working hard.
we're working hard. I gave this description to in a meeting the other day, and so just as an example, the state of Delaware, they have 68,000 acres of public land. We have over 500,000,
Wow.
and they have 60 game wardens. We have 3.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a tough job.
It's a very tough job.
Yeah, but it's very rewarding too.
Now, with 3 game wardens, you also have allies and partners out there that help you, right? I mean, right? Don't people call in?
Yeah, they call more than they used to.
Okay.
When I first moved there, people were afraid that, the old saying was, I'm afraid if I turn anyone in, I'll get burned out or shot or whatever.
yeah.
But it's a lot better than it used to be. People are we have cell phones now, and everyone back in the old days had scanners, and they could hear people on cordless phones and things like that. So people were paranoid about calling the game warden and even worried that their name may get out there that they've turned someone in. So you didn't really get that much help from the public.
Wow.
But it's a lot better now than it used to be.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, people have realized that the poachers are stealing from them too.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. But I'll just preface that a little bit. When I go work with young students, one of the things I do is I ask them who owns the wildlife in Oklahoma, specifically maybe the deer. Because at first I ask them, who's seen a deer in their classroom, and it's 100% of them have seen a deer, not in their classroom, but outside, right, out in the park or whatever, and they've seen them around town. And I said, well, let's go back in time and ask my class back in the 80s how many would have saw a deer, and it wasn't maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, when I moved to McCurtain County, everyone that I met, and even the guys that I worked with would say, and I didn't understand it at first because where I grew up hunting, when I first started deer hunting, I hunted places where you may see 30 deer a day. It was private property.
Yeah.
When I moved there, I thought it would be the same way. But the illegal hunting had the deer population extremely suppressed.
Oh, wow.
And, the guys that I work with, they're like, you better kill the first legal deer you see during the season or you may not see another deer. And if you talk to the locals that have been around a while, they'll tell you that back in those days in the 80s and early 90s, that if someone saw a deer track, the next day there would be 5 trucks there trying to kill that one deer. And so it was that way. It took me a little while to understand that. And but we have more deer now than we've ever had there everywhere. And
It's amazing.
I would say that the habitat hasn't changed. Nothing has changed except, in my opinion, is good enforcement. And there's still good people out there that do it right. And they're not too hesitant to call and report things nowadays. So back in the old days, we just had to go find it.
Yeah.
And nobody would call, so we just go find it, and it's gotten a lot better. And so I think people see that there's a little more value in being able to see a lot of deer as opposed to hunting for a week or two and not seeing but one or two.
Yeah. Well, McCurtain, by nature, though, it was one of the strongholds for deer in Oklahoma, even at statehood.
Yeah, right. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, there were deer there, and it's one of the places we went and got our deer before we started moving them around.
That's correct.
And really reestablishing our deer population.
That's true.
And even, I grew up around Caddo County, and we had deer there, but it wasn't the number we have now. Yeah. And the guys I grew up with that hunted, we hunted totally differently than what they do now.
Yeah.
We went out and hunted squirrel and rabbit and dove and whatever else. But deer hunting was sort of this outlier that a few of us did, but it wasn't something everybody did. And now it's like, if you're going to get into hunting, that's the first thing you do.
That's the first thing you do. Yeah. Where I grew up, there weren't any deer where I grew up. And so I actually didn't start deer hunting until I was 21 years old. It was crazy. And I hunted everything else. And at that time, as far as I know, I was the only person in my family that hunted. And it was just something natural that came to me. It wasn't anything that, I saw other people doing. It was just a strong desire. It just felt natural. So, but I do have family members now, younger generation that hunt and things like that. It's kind of neat to see.
Well, that is neat. Yeah. That is neat. But let's go back to that initial thing. It started this all out is who owns the wildlife in Oklahoma?
The people own the wildlife.
The people.
Yeah. Right. The law says that the people of Oklahoma own the wildlife is to be held in sacred trust by the state. And so, they have a vested interest in all of our wildlife, whether they hunt or fish or just watch wildlife. They all have a vested interest in it.
And so a poacher, by nature, they're stealing from the general public or, their own grandma, if their grandma's from Oklahoma, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They're taking away opportunities from other people. That's what they're doing. And a lot of them they'll do it now, long before the seasons ever get here. If we're talking about deer, they start, in my county, they start shooting deer in July.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I've made deer cases every month of the year, and until yesterday, every month of the year until except May for some reason. And I assume they were just fishing and too busy to hunt deer. But yesterday, I was involved in a deer case where a guy killed a deer a few days ago, killed a velvet buck, and so I delegated that to a couple of my guys, and they knocked it out of the park. So I can kind of take that one off the table. So every month of the year now, I've caught people killing deer illegally.
Wow.
And night hunting in every month of the year. So, yeah.
And most of these poachers, are they opportunistic? Or what do you think? Are they just outlaws?
No, a lot of them are, but a lot of them, that's their job. I mean, they may have a real job somewhere, but they really work hard at it. And it's just a competition among those type of guys. And so I don't know. I can't really say what the mindset is, their mentality, but a lot of it is just about killing.
Wow.
That's all it is to it. And so a lot of these guys it's about having a big trophy on the wall, but unfortunately for them, the only ones they can brag to are people that are like them, So, but that's, in my mind, I've killed a lot of big deer, but they've all been killed legal and they've been killed correctly. And so, I look at those deer and I can tell you exactly when I killed them, what the circumstances were. But a lot of those guys kill so many that they couldn't tell you that. And so, but it's more than a trophy on the wall. A lot of those guys don't even eat deer anymore. They just chop their heads off and leave the carcass. And that's what it's all about for a lot of them.
That's too bad.
It is. Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Wow. And is it prevalent across the state? Do you think these poachers that are with that mentality? I mean,
I think it's more prevalent in the Southeast. I don't know why that is. Maybe it has a reputation for being a lawless place anyway, but we have guys that will travel to far parts of the state, all the way to Kansas line and maybe even to other states to hunt illegally. And that's their thing. I've told people that's their drug of choice. That's where they get their kicks. And part of it, I think, maybe trying to get away from the game warden, but unfortunately or fortunately for them, there's a lot of them. There's just a handful of us. So, it's not that hard to get away with it, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, even now we've got Facebook and all these other things that people use.
Yep.
Cell phones.
Yeah. The thing that got the guy caught yesterday was Snapchat.
There you go.
Yeah. So, unfortunately for us, we can be in one location and then I may get a text from someone and say, well, I saw you're at such and such place, and somebody saw me and took a picture and sent it on Snapchat, like he's here. You can't fight that. You can't beat it, you know. So, and you can't be everywhere. So that's just the one thing that works against us, but it also at the same time can help us. So,
yeah.
But,
and people it seems like they're telling on themselves as they're wanting to brag.
Yeah. Bragging usually is what gets a lot of people caught.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's get started. You brought us a neat case today that you want to talk about.
Sure.
And you've been in a lot of different cases from all walks of life, but this is one specific that it seems like it was a case that you had multiple states and even the feds involved.
That's right. Yeah.
And then multiple people were involved.
That's correct. So I said earlier that McCurtain County borders Arkansas to our east, and so we get a lot of non-resident pressure from Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, and other states, but primarily those states. And so in 2012, in the summer, I got a call from a really close friend of mine who was a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Special Agent, Glenn Pye. He's retired now, and the information was that there was a guy that lived in a town in Arkansas not far from McCurtain County that had used his brother's address in Oklahoma to get a Oklahoma lifetime license. Now that's pretty common for people to do that because it saves them a lot of money if they can get by with it.
Yeah.
And we've worked a lot of cases on that. And so I followed up on that, and he had gotten a driver's license, which you have to have that first.
Yeah.
And about 3 months prior to that. And so he hasn't met the 6-month requirement to get a lifetime license yet. So I told Glenn we'll set on it until, maybe late August, early September. And sure enough, on August 29th, he come to Oklahoma City, got a lifetime license at the license desk. And that sounded simple enough, but the other part of the information was that he was allegedly hunting with a group of people from close to his area that were killing a lot of deer in Oklahoma and taking them back into Arkansas. Which turned out to be that part of it was true. So another federal employee who probably would like to remain anonymous helped in the deal. So Weyerhaeuser Timber Company, one of the biggest landowners in the United States, probably. They have land on both sides, Oklahoma and Arkansas, both, and just a lot of roads that go in and out of the state. And when they started leasing that to private individuals or private hunting clubs, they had it surveyed, I guess, and had gates put up on the state line at every one of those where those roads came in and out of the states. Yeah. And so he had already installed 3 cameras, one on each gate. There was 3 gates there that were of interest. Okay. And I helped him put 2 additional cameras up, and we put them in a place where they weren't likely to be seen. Had them hid very well. And so initially we started looking at some pictures that we got pretty quick just to see if there was enough probable cause to continue the investigation.
This first one we have up here is this blue truck. It looks like maybe a C10 or something. What is it?
It's an old Ford, I believe.
An old Ford, yeah.
Probably a 74, 72, 73 Ford.
He's got a dog box in the back, and then he's also got, or he or they, looks like they've got Hunter Orange on. They're driving.
Yeah, so Arkansas gun season starts about a week before ours. Okay. And so in Arkansas, it's legal to hunt deer with dogs. but it's not in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Of course, you can see the gate there. That gate is right on the state line, and he is actually going back into Arkansas right there. And so the theory behind the cameras were, if we got a picture like this with a deer in the back of the truck, then, you know, if we could identify that person and find out that he's not licensed or it's out of season, something like that, we would have probable cause to continue the investigation. And we started seeing pictures like this right away. And so we added a couple of extra cameras on two of the gates, and we placed them a little bit further back from the gate. And fortunately, you can see in this picture, they're standing in Oklahoma. The gate you can see is open. And by Weyerhaeuser's policy, they were supposed to keep the gates locked at all times, even if they were in there. But that gate stayed open for 7 weeks, the whole time. And so anyway, this spot where you see these folks at just happened to be where they all met several times a day and planned their hunt or whatever. So we really kind of got lucky there.
So it looks like there's a dad, maybe 3 kids here. Or, yeah.
There was it was 25 different people involved.
And we blurred their faces here just to try to keep some.
Yeah, there was basically 2 large families, and I think there was one guy that was an Oklahoma resident. He was the only one there. The rest of them were all from Arkansas and close by, not far from there actually. And but this particular place, they yarded up every day. They were several times a day. They would end up right there.
Yeah,
and so I was able to. There were 25 vehicles involved, including ATVs, a couple of ATVs.
Yeah.
I was able to get tag numbers off of 23 out of those 25 vehicles.
Wow.
And once we identified, the owners of the vehicles, that actually most of them belonged to these 2 families.
Large families.
Large families, yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I went to Facebook and started looking at pictures of people, and when I identified somebody on there, then I could go see who their friends were, and then identify some of the other people in the pictures. And so we identified 25 people, and like I said, they had 25 vehicles. And the interesting thing is one day one guy would be in one truck, and the next day he'd be in a different truck.
So they all shared trucks or something.
And the guy on the ATV, one day he'd be on a red ATV, the next day he'd be on a tan ATV. I think what they did is they just jumped on or in whatever had gas in it that day. And came to hunt. So yeah, it was interesting, but it was constant traffic in and out every day for 7 weeks.
Well, I can see their dogs in the back of the truck there. So
And so basically what they would do is turn the dogs out, run the deer into Oklahoma where they would kill the deer, and I guess turn the dogs back loose and run them back into Arkansas and kill the deer in Arkansas. It was just a small, relatively small area that they hunted. I mean, they hunted the same place every day.
Wow.
For 7 weeks. And this guy on the bicycle, maybe he didn't have a driver's license, who knows? But it's pretty interesting. They used every mode of travel except horses and mules, I guess. But this was a pretty common day. I mean, it was just this was every day for 7 weeks.
And how many photos did you end up having?
About 50,000.
50,000. That's a lot.
I looked at those 3 different times.
Wow.
So it took. What I would do when we first started this, it was fall. It was, November, December, and January. So I typically work nights about 8 months out of the year there, and regularly. So what I would do is come in 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and open my laptop, put an SD card in, and start scrolling through. And there was times I would get a little sleepy, and I'd be trying to get a tag number and just couldn't get that last number on the tag. And then the next day I would open it back up and look at it. It was just like it was there. And so,
wow.
Yeah, it took about 8 months to go through all that and be able to identify everyone, all the violations. And so in August, we got together I called my partner Drew Polk, and we met, got together, stayed in contact with Special Agent Pye,
Yeah.
and then he brought his partner, and then there was a 3-man investigative team from Arkansas that they had no idea what was going on until they got there, and we briefed them. And so I had everything that we needed. We had everyone's name, where they live, where they work, what they look like, everything. And so we broke up into teams and started interviewing people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was pretty interesting. And and I'll say this, for all the violations that they were involved in, they're not bad people. It's just the fact that that's just what they did. And so they were pretty honest for the most part. I would ask them, how many deer did you kill last year? And they'd tell me, and I'd say Oklahoma or Arkansas. They killed them in Oklahoma. It didn't matter whether it was Oklahoma or Arkansas, but they would tell me, and I'd say, do you know this guy? Yeah, I know him.
Yeah.
Call him and tell him to come here and bring the deer that he killed last year. And he would get on the phone and say, hey, the game warden's here. And then you'd hear, no, I'm not kidding. The game warden's here. He wants you to bring your, and they would show up.
Wow.
And so for their cooperation, we decided to just charge the men, family, because it was kids involved, moms, and, involved as well. And so they had killed, while we documented, they had killed 45 illegal deer that year. 29 bucks and 16 does, and a bear. Somehow, I don't know if the bear wasn't checked in or what I can't remember what the story was on the bear, but we charged 6 of those guys in Oklahoma, and those 6 plus the other 7, 13 total were charged in Arkansas. And so we filed altogether, I think 78 charges on all those guys. And so they took their licks pretty well.
So that, and what they were doing there, that's actually crossing lines.
It is.
So that becomes a different charge altogether.
Yeah, it's a Lacey Act violation.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. And so that, a lot of times, it just depends on the case and depends on the prosecution, but a lot of times it's just easier to make state charges because they don't have to go to federal court. But the good thing about it is we've always got that federal charge to as a bargaining tool. Most people don't want to be charged in federal court or any of that kind of stuff. And so every one of those deer was a separate Lacey Act violation. And so we discussed that, and I think everybody agreed to cooperate. And so we didn't. If that hadn't happened, if they had changed their mind or we can always go the federal
lied
route.
about it or whatnot.
So yep.
Wow. And so this may have been a practice that their grandfathers had taught them or something.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. It's a family thing, and that's just what they do. And so one of the interesting thing about the guy that we got the initial complaint on about getting the lifetime license, he didn't actually hunt with those people at all.
Really?
Yeah. Not then anyway. I never got a picture, but we so one of the guys involved in this, the only guy that wasn't quite cooperative, he wasn't mean, he just dummied up really good. Yeah. And had this really, really good dumb act. He said he was slow, couldn't remember anything. And so I was getting a little frustrated just because I wasn't budging with him, and I knew he was lying to me. And so I played a card that I really didn't want to play, but I did, and it changed his attitude, and he straightened up, dropped the dumb act, cleared up a lot of stuff. Probably won't give any details of how I did that, on TV, but anyway, it worked really well, and so we cleared up a lot of stuff. And so after we left there, we went to the original, the guy we got the complaint on originally. Yeah. And he had gotten a fraudulent lifetime license, and he had killed a couple of deer on it. We got those deer. He actually helped his dad get an Oklahoma lifetime license as well. Had never lived in Oklahoma.
Fraudulently.
And one of these other guys, the guy that was giving me the dumb act. He had actually lived in Oklahoma for a short period of time, and he helped his brother get one. So we ended up with 3 lifetime licenses that were fraudulently obtained, and that doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, the face value was like $2,300 and some change.
Yeah.
But if you look at that over the course of their lifetime, that's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
A lot of money that the state's going to lose out on. So that was a pretty good deal. And that's a pretty common thing with non-residents. You know, even if they buy a piece of property, you know, in Oklahoma, they feel like they're entitled to do that. So we work a lot of those type cases.
Yeah. I've noticed this. It's something we've been kind of narrowing down on here lately too.
Yeah. We've had to change a few things to prevent some of that license fraud. So we deal with it all the time.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a major story, but it seemed like it almost has a happy ending in some ways. Maybe these kids didn't continue on the family practice of.
I hope they didn't.
Yeah.
One of the funny things I'll just tell you real quick, and I just kind of brought to mind while we were doing the interview process, and what I did during the first initial before we contacted anyone, I gave all the officers a picture, and it was a picture of that one truck with the dog, the deer on the dog box.
Yeah.
And I said, if they disagree, or if they, want to dispute it, just show them that picture.
Yeah. And this one specific with the
one just like it. Same truck.
Same
May
truck.
not have been that exact picture, but it seemed like it was.
Seemed like you have a couple here, but yeah.
We never had to use that, and so I'm not sure if they knew. I know they didn't know then how they gotten caught. They probably do now, but it was interesting. One of the guys that was on an ATV, I was interviewing him, and one day he would be on a red ATV. The next day he would be on a different colored one, and I said, "You're the guy I saw riding an ATV, red ATV one day," and he said, "Yeah," and I said, "And the next day you'd be on a tan one."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, "I bet you wonder how I know that." And he looked at me. He just looked up and pointed at the sky. And I don't know if he thought we had a drone or it was divine intervention or something, but it worked.
God routed them out. Well, yeah.
But they were very cooperative. I'll say that, and that's not always the case. But they were, and so it went smoothly. And like I said, that doesn't mean they're bad people. And there are a lot of bad people that are poachers too. A lot of just regular criminals, but these people aren't like that. That's just what they did.
Opportunity they took, and they probably got away with it a few times.
They hunted every day for 7 weeks with deer, dogs, and rifles.
Wow.
And so, all through the bow season, through the muzzleloader season, and through the gun season.
And what they do when they hunt with dogs, it's almost like a deer drive, right?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
They have standards, where they know where deer cross when they get pressure on them, and so they'll put standards out. And sometimes if they don't have a standard in a certain place, and the dogs or the deer takes a different course, they'll run around in their pickup and try to cut it off. And so over the years, we've had incidents where we've had people shot.
That's
somebody
scary.
shooting down the road, trying to shoot a deer, run across the road, and then hit somebody's pickup. Had a guy shot in the face one time through his front windshield.
Wow.
We've had people shot in their trucks through the door, things like that. And then we've actually had people, 2 different groups trying to hit the same deer off and have a head-on collision. So it gets kind of crazy, but it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still there. So.
Well, and I go down to McCurtain County a lot, and listen, if you're listening to this and you haven't been down there, don't shy away from visiting.
Oh, no.
It's a great place to visit.
It's a neat place. It's very unique, and like I said, it's the terrain, the habitat is probably the most diverse in this state. You mentioned Red Slough a little bit ago. When I moved there, Red Slough was a rice farm.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of alligators there. It's pretty neat. It's kind of a cool place, and occasionally I'll run into people down there that have never been there, and I'll give them a little alligator tour,
Nice.
show them a gator or something. And we help the researchers trap gators sometimes, and there's some really big ones there. But it's it's a really neat place. And, for all the crime and for all that type of stuff, most of the people will never experience that. They'll never see that when they visit.
Of course.
But
there's some necks of the woods up there that have gotten really popular, right?
that's correct. Yeah. Poacher Town is really big.
Yeah.
It's really busy. And so that's added a lot of pressure to Broken Bow Lake and the trout stream and things like that. But, it's not like it used to be.
There's a lot of money that comes in through there because of that program.
That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the trout stream actually, when I moved there in 88, I got there 2 weeks before deer season. I got there on November 1st. And January 1st is when they started the Lower Mountain Fork trout stream.
Okay.
89. So I'd got there a couple of months before. But at one time, now this has been maybe a dozen years ago, but that trout stream had generated something like $25 million into local economy. And so now the tourism is, boomed, and there's a lot of that.
Which is a kind of a love-hate relationship for a lot of us that love that area.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
We love to see that people are enjoying the outdoors.
Yeah, it's a little crowded now.
It's crowded, but it's, hey, maybe you like the crowds. Go down and visit.
Oh, I figure a lot of people do. Yeah. Yeah, well, people like me, we don't like the crowds too much.
I understand.
But, it's getting harder to find a place to get out and kind of have a little peace,
Peace and quiet.
Not be bothered by a whole lot of folks. But it's still a pretty cool place.
That's great.
A lot of public land, and it's a great place to visit.
Well, Kenny, I want to say thank you for coming on and telling us stories. If you run into a game warden and they're not really busy, maybe they have time to buy them a cup of coffee or soda or something, and maybe ask them a few stories or ask them for a few stories, and they'll give you one.
We like telling stories.
They do. Most every game warden I've met likes telling a good story.
Oh, yeah. We've got a lot of them, and, that's part of who we are.
Well, thank you for everything you do for us, the sportsmen and women of Oklahoma, and the wildlife for Oklahoma. We really appreciate everything you do.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank
It's been
you.
my pleasure to serve the people, for that long. So.
Is there anything you'd like to tell the folks that are watching before we sign off?
Just keep it legal.
Keep it legal. Buy your license.
Yeah, buy your license. That's what funds the wildlife department and keeps us out there. And so,
And, call your game warden if you think you suspect a violation.
Sure. Yeah. And the thing is, we don't tell people who call. we don't, we would never divulge that information. And so a lot of people are aware of that now. So they're a little bit more likely to call than they used to be. So,
you're doing it for the wildlife.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also your grandma and grandpa and whoever else, maybe your great grandchildren.
Yeah. We try to be equal opportunists. We like everybody to have same opportunity. And if somebody's stealing from the resource, they're stealing from, everyone else.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. And thanks for watching, and tune in next time.
All right. Have a good day.